Surely here with Sirius Talis Moon, this is Mercury hour, Mercury day, and the midheaven is 18 degrees Libra. We have Mercury 28 degrees opposing Saturn, and the Moon separating from an opposition to Pluto, trine to Saturn and Neptune. Let's talk about Albania because there was a NATO briefing with Albania, which for me immediately prompts to take a look at the chart. Um, so, but I want to do that. No, I'll talk about Albania. Um, Here we have a country that has Neptune conjoining Procyon, that has Rahu 10 degrees Aries, which basically means in the 8th house, same ascendant as NATO, same midheaven, different degree. Pluto conjoining NATO's Uranus, Saturn 0 degree in Gemini, and Mars in Scorpio in the 3rd house. So Uranus 0 degree Aquarius. So here are some things that immediately come up. First of all, this Uranus is conjoining Pluto, or Pluto is transiting Uranus by an orb of a degree, which means that Albania is going to be big on the Article 5. And my immediate joke with myself when I heard Albania is contributing to NATO way above, kind of like way above its size. Um, Anybody remembers in a bunker in Albania? Then I talked about smart bunkers exiling billionaires. But I just said all Albania really needs to contribute to NATO's bunkers. And it does. And so, um, but those bunkers are smart. So this is where Pluto transiting Uranus for Albania has been Albania becoming. Uranus liberates information. Pluto is something that is hidden and can be underground. And this is the worldwide acknowledgments of Albania being a bunker capital that I think, I'm not even sure if it's seconds to Switzerland. People are like, can you talk about the bunker in Maastricht? Oh, anyway, so Pluto going over the Uranus in the 6th house. This is basically Uranus is a scientific revolution in the planet, in the sign of scientific revolution, with the planet of scientific revolution transiting it. So anything that is coming from Albania, and 6th house is sign of work, technology. In general, this is a country that puts a strong, um, I don't want to say a strong fight, because it's not a competition, but let's say if Israel was wiped out of the planet one day, and we'd have to think which country is going to replace the nuclear equilibrium, technological development, um, and fiscal awareness, I would have to say Albania. Neptune, Neptune Procyon is how NATO can afford not having, for example, Israeli NATO during a world war. Um, it's a great thing because competition breeds, in particularly where Uranus is going through Gemini. Competition breeds who will appease, um, particularly with the Uranus-Gemini transit, who will appease human rights the best. And this uptick in technology, the everything smart, Uranus is a nervous system. Saturn here is in Gemini in the 10th house. So this is a country that can give us a lot of AI CEOs and AI management. Um, Uranus is going over this Saturn, midheaven 8 degrees, juxtaposed to Aldebaran. Again, something that puts a fight to Israel. Mercury conjoining Aldebaran, where we talk about winning land through something that is almost a spiritual warfare, but they basically have to appease human rights to stay in power. So this is not something that is not benefic. Their Pluto is conjoining Uranus for the Natal chart, which makes them a powerful. It makes it a powerful union because Uranus is evolving Pluto, because it's liberating the things that are hidden within Pluto. The hidden facets of powers are coming to light, and Pluto is blending with ability to control chaos. Now, I have to be very cautious because the 60th generation that had Pluto-Uranus conjunction was severely suffering from those attempts. It was the chaos theory that allowed us to regulate the heartbeat, but it was also the controlling of chaos that invoked controlled chaos within children, and Mercury is a sign of children, and created a lot of the ritual abuse that is responsible um, uh, for a lot of the things and a lot of the problems today. So having that kind of like a double whammy, Pluto transiting the Uranus of Albania, and Pluto of Albania conjoining the Uranus of Natal, is something that could pose a lot of opportunities if you think about controlling smart cities, okay? But also smart cities exiling people by the merit of them being smart, okay, this is sovereign. Route that goes into sovereignty in the 8th house, which means innovative occultistic practices development, and Mars in Scorpio, so those are of a psychosexual, psychoerotic nature. And this is a country that will contribute a lot in this bisextile to reshaping the occultistic practices that build the world war. Now, again, as always with Rahu, there are several attempts at that. Aries is about sovereignty and sexual sovereignty. Mars here emphasizes the psychosexual link, and is opposing Saturn. So this is where Albania is a country that embodies both the mistakes and the wisdom that without sexual sovereignty we do not have. Without sexual sovereignty is a failed army. That being said, people usually tend to make, experts are usually those that make the maximal amount of mistakes in a certain field. So we can't predict that right now they are aligned with those values, and this might show up in crisis around the bunkers. Wait, I'm recording. Recording. Thank you. No. Neptune Procyon. Neptune Procyon is one energy to tap to because this is where there is going to be a channeling mediumship understanding of how even the mafia and the secret societies need to look within themselves when it comes to the denuclearification process, the nuclear balance, preventing a nuclear holocaust worldwide. This actually tops Israel's midheaven. Israel has a midheaven that was good for between two wars. Albania, Albania here, that's a little bit older, 1912, but Albania has Neptune, which is worldwide. It's aware of seclusion. It's aware of the missing people. It's aware of how we tend to the missing people, how we tend to people in seclusion, and how we tend to people even when it comes to how the mafia deals with things, how drug dealing is done, can contribute to a nuclear holocaust or prevent it. But with Neptune, one has to surrender the outcome. So this is a country that has amazing gnosis. I know that the American military people sometimes retire to Albania or are present within Albanian borders, particularly psychologists that worked for the US Army. And when I look at this chart, it seems like a natural move, with United States having Sun, Jupiter, Venus, and the Mercury in Cancer, and Albania providing for that Procyon, not a place of retirement, but a place of missing activity, activity that is going off the radar. So very, very potent. Okay, I'm gonna put my Procyon perfume for that. Very, very potent placement. It's a country that has a lot of very deep, profound insight into the occult. It can contribute a lot to the world, and I'm not surprised. It is a very powerful player. Yes, Albania had to found its own independence and maintain it in quite a difficult arena. Ascendant 11 degrees Virgo, Mercury 24 degrees Sagittarius. So Mercury is not too far from the galactic center, conjoining Jupiter in Sagittarius. Sun 5 degrees Sagittarius. Sun in the fourth house. Leaders are people, people are leader. Ruler of the fourth house in the fourth house. So this also draws a magnetic power of Albania to other worldly leaders and figures, because this is a country that stays at home and invites people to it. Freedom is an important value and an important motive, and there can even be a suicide mission around freedom. The galactic center denotes of a place where fated choices have to be made, and sometimes they go to the dark and sometimes they go to the light. So again, powerful country. Venus 11 degree Capricorn, trine in the ascendant, in the 5th house, Saturn in the 10th house, ruler of the 10th in the 4th. A lot of emphasis of concentrating power yet avoiding tyranny. Okay, at least that is the intention behind the chart. The big challenge is the occult practices. The occult practices have to support sovereignty, but with Rahu, 8 houses occult, Aries is innovation. The occult practices have to support sovereignty, and it takes a couple of attempts to get there. Now Neptune is crossing the 8th house of Albania, and Saturn will cross it as well. So it means Neptune and Saturn will cross, first Saturn and then Neptune will cross Rahu. So this is a country where, let's just say, it will really have to, well, everything that I say about MK Ultra can take down NATO is relevant to anybody that has ascendant Virgo, because they would be invested, that would be their 401k. And any country that has ascendant Virgo, and in that case Albania in particular. There's a mystic rectangle going between Neptune, Saturn, Uranus, and Mars, which is another form of alchemy, awareness, occultism, channeling, being able to transmute challenges. So again, this is a country where the world will have to study it deeply and thoroughly. Sun in the fourth house. We see that even the bunkers that are in the soil are actually world renowned. Sun in the fourth house doesn't allow. This is Sun in the fourth. Sun is leaders, but Sun in the fourth house also means that we're gonna see the land. We're gonna know what's in the land, and it is contributing to transparency that is actually playing in favor of Albania in the age of air. You want to think textile factory and Israel. Okay, that was actually, the people knew that Israel has that textile factory. Was a major signification in being a nuclear equilibrium country between the East and West. But Albania, by its power and merit, and by the fact that it's Neptune there, is also showing us that we need to adopt a surrendering the possibility that there would be a total nuclear extinction because of radiation. It can be leaking, and that it is the missing people, the mafia practices, the secret societies, rituals that, and the stealth wealth, because Neptune is also that, and the use of drugs, that is going to be, yeah, alcohol as well, but I think it's more drugs here. But it can be alcohol as well, or the mixture of the two. But I think that those are the things that affect the holistic picture, and Neptune is always kind of like holistic medicine of everywhere it goes through. And those are the things that affect whether we have a nuclear holocaust or not, by the merit of radiation. So this is a country that will be very aware of the need to prevent nuclear radiation and any type of radiation-based disease. Including the radiation that is used supposedly for therapy, particularly cancer. Actually, working with the talisman of Procyon can be very useful. It's a country that can also be favored, but again, in secret societies, is it favored for a reason that will sustain it, or is it being favored, and it's a feature of Procyon, can actually be a two-edged sword, and with Neptune, it's a little bit of both. Moon, 11th house, 18 degrees, degree of poison. There is risk of poisoning to the people, to the nation, particularly around fertility. It's a degree that my teacher and assassinated astrologer Nikola Stojanovic, that had this degree and died of the COVID military operation, calls pure evil. So yes, it definitely is a chart that makes one need to go meditate on it. With midheaven close to Aldebaran and Mercury on the galactic center, there is also a surrendering of whether Albania will hold land, because Aldebaran is about appeasing. The victory can only be enjoyed if it is appeasing human rights the best, and particularly children's rights. For example, did Israel enjoy its victory over the land? Actually, the question why not Uganda was perpetuating throughout the 70-something years of existence, particularly with the veterans, particularly with people that want to unalive themselves. There's a lot of things that, high-tech nation and so on, but a lot of things that are less discussed And one could ask a philosophical question: what if assisted death for mental reasons was available in Israel? Would there be any citizens? My assumption is no. And this is because, yes, it won over the land. It was relatively the best promiser of human rights, but relatively plays a major and significant role here. Midheaven, Aldebaran, and Mercury Galactic Center means that there are certain fated choices that can make that victory more or less sweet, depending on how able they are to appease human rights. And the galactic center is a point, it's kind of like a vortex or a black hole of humanity. And what happens within a black hole is transmutation. It can make humanity go extinct, or it can emit light. Yeah, and people are like, how come you have a midheaven on a galactic center and you're not a Luciferian? I don't have the answers for everything, okay? Let's just put it that way. But yes, this is a chart that makes you think. This is a chart that makes you meditate. Have sun to my Ketu. Black moon Lilith on my lot of fortune. With a lot of fortune. Adjacent to my own lot of fortune. But Saturn in Sedna. Sedna and Uranus are going over this Saturn. So, rare earth minerals in Albania. And the question is the single girl accommodated for? I don't know too much about Albanian culture, but if not, I would tell NATO to have a plan B. Okay? That is. It's mineral o'clock. Um, yeah. Now let's take a look for the time that we have left. Let's take a look at Albania. Let's do a small Wikipedia on Albania. Look at these beautiful views. Beautiful, beautiful country. Um, okay. Located in the Balkans on the Adriatic and Ionian Seas, within the Mediterranean Sea, shares land borders with Montenegro to the northwest, Kosovo to the northeast, North Macedonia. I'm going to let me do a little bit of chaos here. Jovano, Jovanke. If you know, you know. Okay, I had a Bulgarian friend, and that was her favorite song, so I learned it in one of those languages. And and I sang it and I posted it on YouTube. My entire feed was Bulgarians and Macedonians arguing on whether I have a good Bulgarian accent or a good Macedonian accent. And I just recorded the song for my friend. Um, so, to the east and Greece to the south. Um, so this is a country that has to set the record straight with Kosovo and Macedonia. And I think, like I said, it tops Israel. Like if there is a meteor falling on Israel, we are going to have to look at Albania. With an area of 28,748 kilometers. It has varied range of climatic, geological, hydrological, and morphological conditions. Again, Israel is way smaller, but Albania's landscape range from rugged snow-capped mountains, which is probably where the bunkers are, in the Albanian Alps, and the Korab, Skanderberg, Pindus, and Seronian mountains, um, to fertile lowland. Again, this is a country that can hold its economy. It's a very potent country. Um, the varied soil is varied minerals, is ability to build the bunkers, it's um, having its own resources in its own land, ability to move around, ability to grow food. Um, okay. And sea borders. So they definitely have to learn about power. They definitely have to hold power. And here's the thing: Albania has to hold the relevant power for the spirit of the times. Um, and it has the natural landscape to do so. It really, really has to preserve the land and the soil and the sea. So it has to know about kind of everything. Um, so it will maintain its natural power, and technology cannot violate that. Because the power is very, very simply put in the country, in the um, geographic, mineral, sea borders, and the location that is quite potent. Okay, it's not the Middle East, but it's definitely a very potent location, because even China is meeting Europe and the U.S. On the Russia Balkan way more than the Middle East. In fact, China could take, which it kind of did, take over the Middle East tomorrow, and Europe might not be as affected by that as if China would set footsteps in the Balkan, which is why Putin invested 25 billion in a nuclear plant in Turkey. Turkey, a NATO ally, uh, $1 billion. Okay, Putin invested billion. That's also something that the currency plays a part here. Um, okay, religion: 50% Islam, 45 Sunni, 4.81 Bakhtashism, 16% Christianity, mainly Catholic, some Orthodoxy, and very few, less than 1% Protestants, 13 irregulation, and 3% atheism, 15% undeclared. Um, Islam. So Islam has good hygiene policies. Actually, one of the things Islam is most known for is hygiene. Um, one of the most strict on hygiene, but not known. Okay, what Islam? If Islam is practiced in a way where a woman has her territory and fiscal autonomy, if it's practiced in that way, it's less terrible. But the violation of yin, and again, Sunni Islam, I'm not too aware of how Sunni Islam operates, and Sunni Islam is different also in Albania. Uh, and this is something that is very important to that Neptune Procyon, because it's how the spiritual practices affect the risk of nuclear holocaust by the merit of leaked radiation. Um, so we would need to look into that. Again, Catholicism, connects to the Vatican, which would connect it to the spiritual welfare practices of the Vatican, that puts Albania in great risk, to be very honest. So yes, that is what comes to mind in terms of spirituality. um, has a rich history since 1090. Okay, Principality of Arbanon managed to hold land for quite some time. Okay, so it originated in Illyrian tribes. Then several colonies were founded by ancient Greek. Apollonia, so god Apollo, and it still has sun in the fourth house. Apollo is a sun god, and it's god of creativity, and sun Sagittarius, freedom of creativity. Sun is creativity, Sagittarius is freedom, freedom to be creative, sun in the fourth house. So we still have in the modern chart sun in the fourth house, which is fascinating. How the main themes of a land go through various changes, but they're still kept. The features of the land are still kept in their version in modern time. And then there was the rise of Macedon, the Illyrian Wars. Albania was integrated to Roman Empire, again having to surrender. And this is Neptune. Procyon, by the way, in modern chart is about being favored by the current, basically mafia, which would mean spirituality, secret society, and the financiers of religion and the regime. Um, which means that as it is right now, we are going to a nuclear holocaust. um, yeah, because what it had to do to sustain was whoever was conquering to be favored by the conqueror to receive the resources and the freedom to create. Then it was the Byzantine Empire. During Middle Ages, several Albanian principalities emerged. Principality of Arbanon, Kingdom of Albania, and so on. In the 15th century, Albania became a center of resistance against the Ottoman expansion, which is again with Russia being invested in nuclear plantation in dollars in Turkey. is, having Albania is important. Under the leadership of Gheorghe Castrioti Skanderberg. The pronunciation is a fascinating mix that reminds me of Nordic tribes together with like Slavs and so on, whose military campaigns repelled Ottoman advances for 2 decades. Then we go to the Albanian Renaissance in the 19th century and Declaration of Independence in 1912, kind of around the aftermath during the Bolshevism, and we're entering another similar era to the Bolshevik Revolution. So Albania is quite important for its ability to just relax and chill and and still be favored, followed by a turbulent 20th century marked by monarchy, foreign occupation during both world wars, and a repressive communist regime under Enver Hoxha. Since independence in 1912, Albania has undergone diverse political evolution, and again, it kept its 1912 Declaration of Independence throughout the World War. It's kind of like the saying about something, it doesn't break, it bends, and this is exactly the thing about this country. So, to be very honest, it would be fascinating to visit. But I don't know if it's super safe for women, which would dictate its But this is the country where, like, okay, if you're supposed to be like safer for women, they'll just adopt. If you're supposed to be like, they're all these satanists, or that they just adopt. Um, and it has a lot of, it's kind of like a sage sitting in the mountains, and having the ability to be the water and be the rock at the same time. Um, I'm sure that to visit there would be a spiritual experience for like many people. I wouldn't be surprised if there are people that go there for developing spiritually. Governed by a constitution prioritizing separation of powers, the country's political structure includes a parliament, ceremonial president, and a functional prime minister as hierarchy of courts. Um, Again, very similar to Israel, to modern Israel. Albania is a developing country in an upper middle income economy, driven by a service sector with manufacturing tourism, attracted over 11 million visitors in 2024. Um, After dissolution of the communist system, countries shifted from centralized planning to open market economy. Albanian citizens have universal healthcare access, free primary and secondary education. Country is an official candidate for membership in the European Union and has been negotiating accession since 2022. So it's already in NATO. Um, yes, very powerful. We have Edi Rama, Prime Minister, who was meeting Mark Rutte earlier this morning, and Bejram Bejaj, President. And we have foreign relations, but also let's take a look at the economy. So we had a socialist planning, capitalist mixed economy, socialist plan to a capitalist mixed economy. It's one of the mixes that we have of right and left wing also when it comes to economy. Um, Again, standing in between two worlds, having to bridge in the gaps. Um, this is kind of like a Zen-like political entity or geopolitical entity. Um, Very, very beautiful country. The World Bank and European Community economists report that Albania's fishing industry has good potential to generate export earnings and to compete the prices of Greek, Italian markets. Um, well, I wouldn't. When it comes to, oh my God, now I have to talk about. No, I'm not going to address that now. But this is also related to Sedna. Yeah. Appeasing Sedna is very important for the fishing market if they develop that. Um, and it may sound like Chinese to people, but I'm sure that Albanians would look at me and like, yeah, she understands how we work. And because there's nothing done without understanding what are the divinities associated with that resources across time, which is also how it manages to keep from being from going extinct radiation wise. Okay, what is viticulture? Oh, wine growing. There's something going on about wine because wine is joined to Beta per se. I'm not an expert on the wine industry, um, but wine is very associated with Beta per se, and how should I say that? There's just something interesting that's going on there in that industry in general. Wine industry is partaking in the fixed star or binary fixed star beta per se that has to do with bodies upon bodies and sexual boundary violation, or bodies upon bodies because of sexual boundary violation. So alcohol, by the way, is used for tinctures as well, but this is a very fascinating industry that whenever people want to have sovereignty, they usually look to the wine industry. I saw that also with the brand Rain that is to rule in the African brand. And I think it's a whiskey brand, which is unusual. Um, there was an entrepreneur, an African entrepreneur. So the fish industry, um, in this day and age, I would look into Sedna. Wine industry, better per se. Um, and they would have to be a bank giant. And they have what it takes to be a bank giant. I wanted to talk about banking actually, but I said, okay, I'll just look. There's a new NATO news. I'll just take a look at that before I move to the banking system. They have the potential to develop a banking system. It's just kind of like they have all the gnosis that's needed to build in a banking industry. Oh, let's see. Banking industry is a major component of the tertiary sector and remains in good condition overall due to privatization and commendable monetary policy. And we're probably not seeing not even the tip of the iceberg. We got into that. Tertiary sector represents the fastest growing sector in the economy. What is tertiary? A service sector, economic service sector, manufacturing, production, transportation, utilization and reuse, recycling, and raw material extraction. So this is also Sedna. Pluto, because of the recycling factor. Um, Distribution, transportation, they have Pluto Gemini, that makes sense. Manufacturing, production, Neptune is in Aries, they're going to have to tend to that. I need to tend to that. Utilization and reuse, again, Pluto Gemini. Disposal, recycling, again, Pluto. And Pluto out of bounds in Aquarius is going to be very important for the architecture of that particular industry. There's a service sector. Pest control. Okay, that's already Mars. I have a Mars in Scorpio. Previously one of the most isolated and controlled countries in the world. Again, Neptune, which this is a country that could actually have a splendid isolation period that is actually splendid. Controlled, but this is something that the world needs to be aware of. Albania can have a splendid isolation. Okay. Israel is trying to do that. My predictions are not good for that. But Neptune going to the seventh house of a country, it can be having to surrender into isolation mode. Previously, one of the most and going viral. Forget about it now. Previously, one of the most isolated and controlled countries in the world. Telecommunication industry represents nowadays another major contributor to the sector. Privatization, investment, domestic and foreign investors, Eagle, Vodafone, and Telecom in Albania. Tourism, naturally, such a beautiful country. Yeah. Okay. Just really fascinating place. Beyond fascinating chart. They're way more of a major player than it seems in the global economy, because the wealth has shifted from Pluto to Neptune. Um, their Neptune is now squaring their Neptune. It's a closing square. It's moving from the trine to the square. Sorry, it's moving from the trine to the square. So we're still enjoying the benefit of the trine, breaking free from the economic isolation, and is moving towards the square in the coming 15 years, which is a square is always a crisis of success. I'm going through my Neptune square talking about them. um, we had an eclipse, a lunar eclipse, in their seventh house. The solar eclipse is Venus is going to be closer to the ascendant, but it's not yet pinpointing. I think 2026 eclipses are going to be even more important. That's what I have to say. Fascinating place.